takes less than 1% of GDP from this package.
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, as a member will know, New Zealand has got significant fiscal stimulus, at least as large as the Australian, or at least comparative to the Australian and the US governments, of around 4% of GDP over the next couple of years. The difference is that New Zealand went into recession 12 months earlier than them under the previous government, and the 2008 budget cut taxes and increased spending significantly, which means that by now, when the recession is deepening, the New Zealand government unfortunately has a lot less options than those governments.
Supplementary.
Chris Tremain.
To the Minister. Minister, how will the projects announced this morning benefit the economy?
Mr Speaker.
The Honourable Bill
What a
English.
very good question.
Order. Order. Order.
Mr Speaker, the projects will benefit the economy in two ways. First of all, they will provide some short-term stimulus. They will soak up some jobs in a sector where jobs are being lost, that is the construction sector. But secondly, and probably just as importantly, we need to get this economy ready for recovery. After 10 years of misdirected and complacent economic policy, these projects represent quality investments that will help lift the productivity of the New Zealand economy.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Speaker, to the Minister, what is the basis for the government's estimate of 2,000 jobs to be created by this package and retained over 2 years, and why, when the Treasury's estimated at least 68,000 New Zealanders will lose their jobs in the next 15 months, does he think that that's in any way an adequate response?
Supplementary.
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, these projects will have the effect of helping to retain some jobs, perhaps create opportunities for those who have already lost their jobs. We have never said that we will be able to roll back the unemployment that is forecast for this year. The member quoted Australia. At the same time as the Australian government announced its significant stimulus, it also announced that unemployment was likely to reach over 7%. This, along with other measures the government has taken, will help protect people from the sharp edges of recession and send us along the road of lifting our economic capacity so this economy can grow when this recession is over.
Supplementary.
Chris Tremain.
To the Minister, what reports has the Minister seen on alternative approaches?
Yeah, well, I have seen that report.
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, there has been quite a lot of public discussion reflected in questions today about the difference between stimulus packages in New Zealand and in Australia. The net result of the 2008 budget, tax cuts to come on the 1st of April and the government's allocations to infrastructure spending mean that the stimulus in the New Zealand economy is comparable to that in Australia and the US, just that it hasn't been announced in such a dramatic way, mainly because New Zealand started in recession 12 months ahead of those countries, and we had an election around the time of the financial crisis.
Point of order, the Honourable...
Mr Speaker, I seek leave to table an article from the New Zealand Herald on December the 19th, 2008, reporting Treasury forecasts of between 68 and 87,000 new unemployed in New Zealand over the next year.
Is there any objection to that document being tabled? There is none. Point of order, the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, I seek leave to table a transcript of an article by the New Zealand Press Association in One News Today reporting the government's estimate of only 2,000 jobs created by this so-called infrastructure package.
Is there any objection to that document being tabled? There is objection to that.
Oh, it's never happened before.
The Honourable Sir Roger Douglas.
Mr Speaker, could the Minister explain to the House why, given the experience of the last 10 years, when the Labor government reduced productivity in this country from 3% to less than 1% as a result of their policies of redistribution, Why is the government planning to spend so much of the $500 million on the infrastructure on what can only be described as low-quality, low-growth projects?
Supplementary.
Order. Order.
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Bill English.
Can I compliment the member on his analysis of the misdirected policies of the last 10 years? But I disagree with him. I disagree with his description of these projects.
Come now to question number 3 in the name of the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Finance, what advice has he received from Treasury on removing the R&D tax credit, removing the $700 million Fast Forward Fund and reducing KiwiSaver contributions?
Honourable Bill English.
Welcome to the real world.
Mr. Speaker, Treasury gave us the advice to keep the R&D tax credit, to maintain the Fast Forward Fund in the form it had been proposed by the last government and make no changes to KiwiSaver. However, prior to the election, National made a number of decisions which were to remove the R&D tax credit, remove the Fast Forward Fund and change KiwiSaver contributions, and we are sticking to our word.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr. Speaker, why did the Minister suppress the Treasury briefing critical of these moves and release it at a time designed to minimise public awareness?
That's right. Fess up, Bill.
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, the Labor Party complaining about compliance with the OIA is like Jack the Ripper complaining about community violence.
Craig Foss. Order. Order. I've called already Craig Foss.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My supplementary is to the Minister. What other reports has he seen of advice offered by Treasury to finance ministers?
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, the Treasury advice, as always, is mixed. Some we agree with, some we disagree with. There was other advice they have given us, such as the need for extensive review of the Resource Management Act, which the government has followed, and a Resource Management Act amendment bill will be in the Parliament within a few weeks. They've also given us the advice that the performance of the public service needs to be increased significantly, and I would agree with that. After 10 years of bullying and manipulation, it can do a lot better, and we will make sure it does.
Point of order, the Honourable Dr Michael Cullen.
I raised a question about the relevance of that answer. The question was a patsy question designed to elicit the answer about my reference to ideological burp, and I think the Minister read the wrong answer at that particular point.
Order.
That's not your problem.
It's just not funny anymore.
Order. Not a particularly helpful point of order, I must say. The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Supplementary. Why did the Minister not have equal fortitude to the former Finance Minister and release the Treasury briefing then at the same time as other briefings to incoming ministers were released?
Yeah, that's right. That's a very good question.
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, the